Today, we're talking about a guy who was so influential, so earth-shattering, that people didn't just see him as a reformer. No, they saw him as a mythical hero. Martin Luther, the German Hercules. And when I say Hercules, I'm not just being dramatic. I mean, take a look at this. This is a woodcut from 1522, and it's pretty wild. It shows Luther as this massive, towering giant. You've got the Pope just dangling from his nose, and in his hand, he's literally crushing these famous theologians. This wasn't just art, this was powerful, powerful propaganda. It was framing him as a symbol of pure national strength. So that's the big question, right? That's what we're really digging into here. How on earth does a single monk, a solitary figure, become a superhero for an entire nation? How does a debate about theology explode into a firestorm that engulfs a whole continent? All right, let's get into it. The German Hercules. You see, the answer to how he got this larger-than-life status, it isn't just about Luther himself. It's about the world he stepped into. A world that was, frankly, a tinderbox just waiting for a spark. And that spark, believe it or not, starts with technology. The printing press. I mean, you've got to think of it like the internet or social media of its day. It was this revolutionary engine for spreading ideas. And savvy printers, guys like John Froben of Basel, they saw the gold mine they were sitting on. They started cranking out Luther's writings at a speed nobody had ever seen before. This technology, it powered everything that came next. And the demand? Oh, it was absolutely explosive. We're talking international bestseller status, like overnight. In early 1519, one collection of his works sold out almost immediately. They had only 10 copies left. They shipped 600 copies to France and Spain. Over in Switzerland, the reformer Zwingli ordered hundreds just to hand them out. And get this, his followers were even smuggling his pamphlets right into the heart of the beast, into Rome itself, risking their actual lives to get the word out. But you know, an engine like that needs fuel. A spark needs something to catch, and Luther's message found the perfect kindling in two massive movements that were already sweeping across Europe: the brainy, intellectual revolution of humanism and the fiery political passion of German nationalism. Okay, Section 2, An Alliance of Minds. Let's talk about that first ripple effect. This is Luther's really complex, really fascinating relationship with the humanists. So what exactly was humanism? Well, think of it as this big Renaissance idea that said, hey, let's focus on, well, humans. It was all about free investigation, using your brain, and most importantly, going back to the original sources. And for our story, this is the kicker. It meant going back to the original Bible in Greek and Hebrew, not just the Latin translation everyone had been using for centuries. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because it shows you what a messy, complicated relationship this was. On one side, the humanists and reformers seemed like a perfect match, right? They both wanted to investigate freely, they hated on the same old-school theologians, and they were obsessed with using the original biblical texts and exposing fake church documents. But, and this is a huge but, their whole worldview was on a collision course. Humanism, totally man-centered. Luther, 100% God-centered. For the humanists, reason was king. For Luther, it was all about faith. So you have this incredibly powerful but super unstable alliance. And to really wrap your head around this, let's not talk about abstract movements. Let's talk about people. We're going to look at how three of the biggest thinkers of the age reacted to what Luther was doing. Their stories really show you the different ways this could all play out. First up, you've got Erasmus, the prince of the humanists. I mean, this guy was a rock star. He's the one who actually prepared the Greek New Testament that Luther used for his own German translation. And he totally agreed with Luther's complaints about church corruption. But he was terrified that the Reformation would just tear Europe apart. So what did he do? He tried to walk this impossible tightrope. He defended Luther's right to be heard, but he just couldn't get on board with all of his theology. He tried to be neutral in an age where, being neutral was getting harder and harder. Then you have Albrecht Dürer, the legendary Renaissance artist. And his work, man, it just perfectly nails the feeling at the time. Just look at his famous engraving, Melancholia. You see this winged figure just slumped over, totally paralyzed by despair, and she's surrounded by all these tools of human genius, science, art, you name it, but none of it helps. And up in the sky, there's a comet, which everyone back then saw as a sign of impending doom. This single image just captures this deep, spiritual anxiety that so many people were feeling. And for Dürer, Luther's message was like a bolt of lightning.
It was the answer to all that anxiety. After he read about salvation through faith alone, he wrote that Luther has helped me out of great anxiety. It was this huge personal breakthrough for him. For Dürer, Luther's theology basically took that scary comet out of the sky and put it safely inside God's promise. And it changed his art and his life forever.
All right, section 3, a call to arms. So we've seen the intellectual side of things. Now let's look at the other major force that poured gasoline on this fire, German nationalism. And let me tell you, this part wasn't just about books and ideas. This was about anger, identity, and yeah, the sword. You have to remember, Germany back then wasn't the country we know today. It was this messy patchwork of different states. And they felt like the rest of Europe, especially the Italians, looked down on them. They felt like the papacy and Rome was just using them like a personal ATM. So there's this deep, simmering resentment just bubbling under the surface, and it's looking for a hero. And then along comes Luther, standing up to the Pope. He gave all that national anger a powerful, righteous theological voice.
And man, you can just hear that anger in the words of a guy named Ulrich von Hutten. He was a knight, but also a humanist. His pamphlet attacking Rome was just pure venom. He literally prayed for pestilence, famine, and war to destroy the city. For guys like him, this was way beyond a theological debate. This was raw, visceral hatred.
Hutten was smart, though. He knew angry words weren't enough. He needed some muscle to back it up. And he found it in a guy named Franz von Sickingen, this powerful mercenary knight. Picture this. Hutten sits down with this warrior, who couldn't even read, in his castle, and he reads Luther's pamphlets out loud to him. And Sickingen is so moved, so fired up, that he pledges his sword to the cause. He's ready to fight and kill to defend the gospel.
And so here we are. This is the moment where everything comes together. The world of ideas and the world of violence, the humanists and the knights, they all converge on one person, Martin Luther. And they put a choice in front of him, a choice that is going to define everything. The offer was simple. It was direct. Franz von Sickingen and 100 other knights offered Luther their protection, their swords. They offered him an army. He could stop just writing about a rebellion and actually lead one. He could turn his war of words into a real, bloody war. So this is it. This is the moment of truth. After all the debating, all the printing, all the alliances, is it all going to come down to bloodshed? Is the German Hercules about to pick up a sword and go to war? And his answer? No, he refused. And what he wrote back is one of the most powerful statements he ever made. He said, "I am not willing to fight for the gospel with bloodshed. The world is conquered by the word." Think about that. He truly believed that an idea was more powerful than an army. He had started a revolution of the mind, and he was going to bet everything on that force and that force alone.
And that's really what it all comes down to, isn't it? It leaves us with this huge question. Luther bet everything on the power of his message, supercharged by this new technology. He chose the printing press over the sword, and his story forces us to ask, again and again, what really happens when an idea becomes more powerful than an army?